Hello friends, and welcome to jwreasoning.com. Today is Wednesday, July 21st, 2021. I wasn't going to do a review of the Examining the Scriptures Daily today, but the more I thought about it, the more I couldn't let this one pass by. So let's begin by looking at this text. This is what the sovereign Lord Jehovah says. During the Great Tribulation, the message that we proclaim will likely change. Currently, we are preaching the good news of the kingdom and we are endeavoring to make disciples. But at that time, we may well deliver a message as hard-hitting as hailstones. We may proclaim the impending doom of Satan's world. In time, we will find out exactly what our message will be and how we will deliver it. Will we use the same methods or will we use some other methods? We will have to wait and see. In any case, it seems that we will have the privilege of boldly proclaiming Jehovah's judgment message. Quite likely, our message will provoke the nations into trying to silence us once and for all. Just as we rely on Jehovah for support in our ministry now, we will need His support then. We can be sure that our God will fill us with power to accomplish His will. Now here are just some of the things I'd like to point out. There is so much I could say about this, but I want to keep this as brief as possible. Take a look. They use Ezekiel chapter 2 verse 4, but they don't use the whole verse. They quote, "This is what the sovereign Lord Jehovah says." That's the last sentence in that verse. And what's taking place in Ezekiel chapter 2? Well, it's pretty interesting if you read the account of Ezekiel. Ezekiel is very prophetic. There's a lot of prophecy in the book of Ezekiel. But if you look at this, Ezekiel is sent to the rebellious nation of Israel. In other words, Ezekiel is this one person that's going and he's telling the leaders, hey, you've rebelled. You've gone into apostasy. So really, if we're looking at this as rank and file witnesses, we should be looking and saying, well, the leaders are in apostasy. And really, that's what's happened. This is exactly what's taken place. But without even going into depth in that, let's look at the wording of the text. I want you to notice some of the language that's used. You notice here, I'm going to highlight it for you, some of these words. Likely, we may, it seems, quite likely. Now, this indicates that if it says we may, can you imagine any of the prophets of the Bible saying, well, it's likely that this is going to happen, or Jehovah may do this, or it seems that He might do this or that. Could you imagine that taking place? I mean, when they do this, it shows that they are truly unsure. If you're unsure, leave it alone. These guys can't help themselves. They're trying to keep you under their thumbs. That's why it starts off, this is what the sovereign Lord Jehovah says. Jehovah doesn't say, I may do this, or I will likely do that, or it seems to me that. No. When Jehovah makes a pronouncement, it is true, it is sure, it will happen. And what these guys are doing is as you read through this, notice what it says. During the Great Tribulation, the message that we proclaim will likely change. I'm sorry, but God's message doesn't change. The gospel is the same. Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So why would the message change? Is the message any different? And then it says, currently, we're preaching the good news of the kingdom, and we are endeavoring to make disciples. Really? Are you currently preaching the good news of the kingdom? Are you out actively proclaiming it? Or are you sitting at home writing letters and hoping that somebody will get it and that you'll send this letter to someone? Not a very effective way to witness. If you're really serious about making disciples, you're not going to worry about this pandemic and what restrictions have been put on you. You need to do it no matter what. Nothing will stop God's people from propagating the gospel. I haven't stopped proclaiming the things that I know and have learned. I haven't stopped being proactive and taking the ministry to as many as possible. But yet organizationally, what have they done? They have stopped worldwide. They have stopped proclaiming the message. Then it says, but at that time, we may deliver a message as hard-hitting as hailstones. And then it cites Revelation 16:21. Well, this is particularly interesting to me because if you look at the Revelation book, it indicates that this could be literal. But lately they've softened their stance on that and says, no, it's just going to be this hard-hitting message. So they say that in the Revelation book, but it also says that this could also be literal. Why are they softening their stance and saying, well, this is going to be our message that's hard-hitting as hailstones? You know, really, is their message that hard-hitting? Does it really seem like they're standing up to the nations? Does it really seem like in the face of opposition that they're preaching the gospel, that they're doing what they have been commissioned to do? And what they really organizationally, this is what they've built their whole reputation on, is going from house to house. What are they doing about it? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So it says, we may proclaim the impending doom of Satan's world. Well, I thought that's what you were doing. I thought you were proclaiming the pending doom of Satan's world. I thought that's what this was all about. I thought that's what the gospel was, that there is victory in Jesus Christ and that Satan is doomed to be destroyed. That's what the Bible teaches. Next, in time we will find out exactly what our message will be and how we will deliver it. Well, it seems to me that over the last 130 or 40 years, or 150 years, I guess, that the organization has been around, maybe not that long, since 1879, it seems like they still don't know what their message is. They had a message and they changed it, and then they had another message, and it's progressively changed throughout the years. Bible truth doesn't change. It remains the same. The message that we should have is proclaiming the gospel of Jesus Christ. The fact that he came, he lived, he died, and he lives again, and that he's going to usher in a beautiful place where we can live for eternity. It says, will we use the same methods or will we use some other methods? Well, I give them kudos here. We will have to wait and see. Well, it seems like they're not using any message at all right now other than jw.org. That's their only means, and just a few letter writing campaigns. I guess they're really trying hard to get the friends to do that, but I don't think the heart's really in it. I really don't think. I think they realize this isn't doing much good. Next, it seems that we will have the privilege of boldly proclaiming Jehovah's judgment message. Isn't that what's been being done since Jesus was here? Proclaiming that message that we need to be ready for the coming of Christ. We need to get our hearts ready. We need to be sanctified. We need to be made holy through the blood of Jesus Christ. That's the message. That's the message we need to boldly proclaim. Then it says, quite likely our message will provoke the nations into trying to silence us once and for all. Well, it looks like they have pretty much succeeded in your public ministry. They have silenced you. So how can you say quite likely they will do it? Now, the interesting thing is here in the United States, they've, it seems, made an alliance with the United States government because, as we've showed in previous videos, they've got their parking lots in some places set up to give the jab to people. And this tells me that they have made an alliance and an agreement with the government to be able to do that. So really, here in the United States, my prediction is that likely they won't take any heat here. And maybe one of the reasons is because this is where the governing body is, and they are terrified of persecution. If you and I have to go through it, that's one thing. But if they have to go through it, that's another. That's why there was a big shift back in about 2004 to 2006 era, when they took all of the governing body out of the positions of control of the organization corporately, and they put other men in that position because they are terrified of being persecuted. That's my take on it. That's what I truly and honestly believe, and if anybody has insights other than that, I would like to know what they are. Next, just as we rely on Jehovah for support in our ministry now, we will need his support then. Well, let me interpret this for you. I do believe that many Jehovah's Witnesses rely on Jehovah God. They pray to him. They rely on him. They expect Jesus to help them through things. They get help from the Father through the Son. And I believe that a lot of faithful witnesses are living up to the light that they have. But I also believe there are many that believe that the organization is Jehovah. So when we read this and it says, just as we rely on Jehovah for support, I would replace that with, just as we rely on the organization for support in our ministry now, we will need the organization's support then. We can be sure that our organization will fill us with power to accomplish its will. That's just my take on it. That's how I read it. when I read these things, this really stood out to me, because what they've done is they've taken this part of Ezekiel chapter 2 verse 4, and they're telling you this is what Jehovah says, and then in all of this text it's, well, we may, or we likely will, or it's possibly, quite likely, seemingly it could be. And is that what he said? No, not at all. We know what the message is from the Bible. We know that we need to live a life of morality, that we need to love our neighbor as ourselves, and before that we need to love God with our whole heart, soul, mind, and strength. If we were to look at this in the application of Ezekiel, it is that the leadership has rebelled. God's people, those chosen ones, the anointed ones, we could say. So when I look at this, when it says, thus says Jehovah, or thus says the sovereign Lord Jehovah, who's he speaking to? He was speaking to his nation. And if you ask any of the anointed who is the nation of Israel in the Bible, they would say it's them. It's the anointed, particularly in the Christian Greek scriptures. So why are they taking this and applying it this way? Because they're trying to keep the group together. They're trying to maintain the control that they've had on you. And they're saying, as they see it start to come apart and start to fracture, they're doing these things to keep you rallied together and to keep you excited and to keep you thinking, look, this is God that's telling you these things. But really, it's the organization. There is a lot more I could say about this text, but I just wanted to point out these things and highlight them for you. I hope you will continue to study, read your Bibles. Remember, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. The truth is not an organization. The truth is not in a group of men. The truth isn't a belief structure put together by men. The truth is Jesus Christ, and no one comes to the Father but through him. So please keep studying, friends, and my prayer is that Jehovah will bless you until we meet again.